morning, Mid-Michigan. This is the 1320 WILS Morning Wake Up on more compelling talk radio. 1320 WILS.
7:09, and good morning. Make sure you're on time here. We get a nice sunny day ahead, but don't expect it to warm it up a whole bunch. 15 later. And does the cold affect your personality? I bet it does. -6 wind chill right now. A lot of things affect your outlook on life, your personality, how you feel about things, your overall disposition, the amount of sleep you get. But you have, I think we all do, an underlining, are we more sanguine of a personality? Are we more choleric? And what is a personality disorder? I know a guy who studies this stuff and can treat it. Regional Psychological Services, our good friend Dr. John Braccio joins us this morning. I don't know, personality disorders, I don't know, that's got to be kind of a gray area there, huh, Doc? Good morning.
Well, good morning to you. It's not a gray area if you're dealing with one of these persons or if you have it. And we're talking today about the borderline personality disorder. Life generally, Mike, is loaded with difficult tests for even the person with a relatively non-eventful road to live. Well, completely the opposite for persons with personality disorders. They tend to lead to severe problems, interactions with others, and all other aspects of their lives. A particularly difficult personality disorder is the borderline personality disorder. Persons with a borderline personality disorder have a mental health condition that impacts the way they feel and interact with others, often due to feelings of abandonment and low self-esteem. They often have patterns of unstable and intense relationships that are very unhealthy for the person and those they interact with. Often there are extreme interactions that can lead to great anger, impulsiveness, and acting out without thinking about the consequences. Typical problematic behaviors could be drug abuse, severe anger, suicide ideation, unsafe sex, violence, binge eating, and spending sprees. Their behaviors are often due to perceived poor treatment and lack of understanding by others. They often distort messages and believe they're being treated unfairly and even attacked when someone may just make a general statement or try to be helpful. Borderline personality disorder usually starts in young adulthood. Positive thing is that, believe it or not, the one thing that seems to help the person is if they improve with age, okay? That seems to happen. But also it's true they can be helped along the road with counseling that counteracts the negativity and distortion of messages that lead to feelings of being abandoned and being attacked, okay? Now, causes of borderline personality disorder are not completely known, but it's believed there is a genetic component, at least for many, because it can run in families and also can be environmental. Many persons with borderline personality disorders come from dysfunctional homes where security was not in place, love was very conditional, there was emotional or physical abuse, and the threats and fears of abandonment were really real. This leads to a person feeling insecure. This fear of abandonment can lead to intense negative interactions when the persons they interact with, that the person tires of being around this person, because if they're always fearing abandonment and they're always talking about this and just to be angry and upset, the person will just sometimes, up and leave. So it's really a very unfortunate thing. Now, the borderline personality disorder persons they're not really large percentage of the population, but they're large numbers, meaning we're talking 1% to 2% of the population. So we're talking probably anywhere from 3.5 to 6.5 million people in the country. So those are big numbers if you're taking the total. So anytime you go anywhere to a Meijer, Walmart, or somewhere, there are going to be persons with that, just statistically. And that happens to be true. Now, the characteristics in order to be diagnosed with this, I mentioned before the fear of abandonment, Mike, and that's a pretty big deal. Consistent pattern of unstable, intense relationships over time. The mercurial mood the person has and how they see themselves. Periods of stress-related, even paranoia, and schizophrenia, where they can lose contact with reality. That's how bad this can be. Impulsive and risky behaviors. which I mentioned a little before, but it can be gambling, dangerous driving, unsafe sex, drug and alcohol abuse, dramatic sabotaging of success in jobs and otherwise positive relationships, threat of suicide. It's a general roller coaster road, really. Now, it's also important, in fairness to persons with borderline personality disorder, to know that some of them do overcome this. They, even with all this going on, they struggle to succeed. They really are able, in many cases, to succeed, even though it can be difficult for themselves and those around them. Now, as far as treatment, there's really no medication per se for borderline personality disorder. However, most persons with borderline personality disorder often do have accompanying or comorbid conditions like anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, paranoia. So there can be, the right combination for treatment normally would include a trained therapist who's really very familiar with dealing with personality disorder, particularly borderline personality disorder, because you need a lot of patience and understanding. And then medication often will be for one of the comorbid conditions with it, like the anxiety, the depression, even the paranoia and the post-traumatic stress disorder. But this is the personality disorders are very difficult to live with and to treat because they're very ingrained behaviors. They're very difficult to change. And the borderline personality disorder, they change on you. They shift, they distort messages. So if you have this, it's something really to work on, and it's very difficult to work with. And if you're interacting with them, these are the people that you hear the statements walking on eggshells. You don't know how the person's going to react, but very, very difficult life for them and for those around them. So it's a tough situation. And people listening to us or people that will, read this or whatever, they will say, well, I know someone like that, or I've interacted with people like that.
I was just thinking that. I know probably several people like that. However, I wouldn't say well-adjusted, but I don't know if they're even diagnosed with this. This seems like such it encompasses a lot of different things. How in the world do you nail it down? I mean, you're the professional.
Well, I think the big one is really the abandonment. Really, Mike, people, they feel abandoned. There's an unsteadiness to their personality, and because of that, they're worried people are going to let them down, and they distort the message. Like a person can just say, well, how's your day going today? It looks like you're having a hard day. What do you mean you think that? What are you doing? You think just attacking me or whatever? A person may not be thinking anything. It's just the distortion. They distort messages. They fear abandonment, and they often are risk takers. Because of these feelings that overwhelm them, they tend to do risky things, whether it's the gambling, unsafe sex, just driving, just making bad decisions, and can get themselves in trouble, and certainly leads to a lot of anger and very difficult relationships. Because if you're dealing with someone, then I know that the person's going to leave me. I know what's going on here, that people always end up leaving me, and the person, regardless of how kind or caring, they can tire of this. They can tire of being with this person who's always angry or upset, mercurial, attitude changing day to day, and they often will leave, and then the pattern goes on and on and on, and the person always feels betrayed, feels people are not trustworthy, that they're going to leave them, and they're not at all aware that they're the ones that are really the cause of this. Now, when people get insight, now there are degrees, obviously. There can be an extreme degree, but once the person begins to realize they have the problem or they want to try to overcome it, it may be very hard to overcome, but with appropriate counseling, with medication for, like I mentioned, there's usually comorbid or other related mental health issues like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and in this case also can be paranoia, that there is a chance for success. And then oddly, for whatever the reason, this person's get older in their lives, they tend to have, the problem tends to dissipate for a good share of people. So But but the personality disorders as a whole are very, very difficult. They're these ingrained behaviors, but really the person can overcome them to some degree and maybe almost completely. It's just a question of being aware of it, working on it, finding people that can support you and really be helpful. But often the problem with the person is they'll overwhelm the person who's trying to be helpful and will end up alone, always feel abandoned. And if you talk to someone like this, it'd be very difficult. And they can turn on you because all of them, they can see you. They can distort your messages here. You're trying to be helpful. And all of a sudden they're saying, well, that darn Mike.
Well, that happens every day. People say that darn Mike. Oh, yeah. You know what? As you and I talk, though, over the years here, every Tuesday, no matter what your subject is, Dr. Braccio, I think I can either point to someone I know or look in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm like that sometimes. Aren't we all a little bit like this sometimes?
Well, I think so, but this here, when you have the personality disorder like this, you're kind of extreme. Everybody can have this, and everybody can be a little paranoid. Everybody can feel someone's letting them down. They can feel betrayed. They can feel someone's not going to be loyal to them, or they've proven to be disloyal. We're talking about a pattern here, a long-term pattern, an ingrained type of personality disorder. It's within you, and when you have this condition, it's the distortion and the feelings of abandonment. Remember, if a person comes from a home, using this group of persons, where there was no stability, you were dealing with difficult people, could be alcoholism, could be people with the same personality disorder, people that demean you, give you a hard time, threaten them, I don't love you, I don't care for you unless you do this, threaten to leave you, are going to kick you out of the house, whatever, and you're telling an 8-year-old. The kid really believes it, the person believes it. You get these ingrained thoughts in your mind, and then you can take statements that were said that were really negative, and then you can hear them. It's hard to explain away, but you distort the message. Someone could say, well, you really look like you're a little tired today. All of a sudden, what do you mean? What do you mean? A person can interpret like, what are you knocking me for? What are you giving me a hard time for? Things like this. It's these distortions. So people just walking on eggshells. You never know how the person's going to react to the same thing, and then it's self-destructive because the person ends up wearing the person out, because a person could love and care for them, but if you're always being attacked for how you're saying it, what you're saying, and it's being misinterpreted, or you're just going to leave me like other people have, or you really don't care, it can be overwhelmingly tiring and destructive. So the relationships often are just like the person's mercurial. They just change. People come and go in their lives, and they ruin the things in their lives. They can ruin wonderful job opportunities, wonderful potential relationships with people. And can be a very lonely life. I've talked to people that are really totally isolated. They really believe that it's everyone else and not them. And if you're
the world's out to get me kind of thing.
Well, there's more of that than you might think. And the world's out to get me. Nobody really cares. Whenever people, I get to know them and I want to, be close and have a relationship, they betray me, they let me down, and they can't really look in the mirror. Like you said, Mike looks in the mirror, and what do you see? Well, you're not going to see a borderline personality disorder, Mike. I will tell you, see a good-looking guy, the second best-looking guy.
You wait till you get to, you wait till you get me on your couch in the office there sometime. Then no, I do. So what is somebody? First of all, you got to recognize it. You got to understand that, I suppose, because if you don't recognize that this might be you, and humble yourself to get some help, you're kind of in trouble, I would think.
That's where counseling really can be helpful. And medication for the comorbid conditions are related, because generally a person is not going to just have borderline. When you have borderline personality disorder, it's going to impact you. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be depressed. You're going to have PT, post-traumatic stress disorder. You're going to have paranoia, at a diagnosable level. If you have these conditions and you also have this distortion of reality, fearing abandonment, and these are strong feelings, people like say are out to get you and not treating you fairly, then you do need this treatment to help you move forward in life. You can do it with good friends if you can find people you can trust, but the problem is you can often turn on them also because you get to the point it's so easy to distort. That's you didn't call me when you said you would. You really don't care. You kind of ignored me. So it's a tough personality disorder to get over, and it's very difficult for the person who interacts with them. A lot of destroyed relationships.
Well, Dr. Braccio, I don't want you to feel like we're abandoning you, but we're up on time.
Okay.
Regional Psychological Services, Dr. John Braccio, look him up. I mean, understand if you need help, really. Always interesting, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Listen, always a pleasure talking to you. You know, we're Dr. John B., so we're easy to get a hold of, too. So anyway, good talking to you, buddy. Have a good day, okay?
All right,
Bye-bye.
yeah, Dr. John B. Look him up on the web. See you later, Doc. 1320 WILS. Hey, it's 724. We're going to do this and come back and get you some news here in a little bit. Myron Gilbert will be with us after the news. He's the coach of Team USA ice fishing team. I didn't even know we had one. Hang on, it's coming up. It's your morning wake up. Mike Austin here. 1320 WILS.